Last night game, we're talking about practice, man. I mean, how silly is that?
Pulls up three-pointer. Bang! Bang! It's good! Wins the game at the buzzer.
And welcome back to the Hoop Junkie Podcast. I'm your host, Zach, and I'm joined as always by the mama. He called the playoffs accurately, and I was wrong. Man himself, Chance Baker. How you doing, Chance?
Man, I won't say that I called the Heat this far, but looking back in my bracket, I feel pretty good about the majority of the picks that I had. But this is like a March Madness year where it's like no one had the way this unfolded. No one had this exactly. It's been crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you did not pick the Heat coming this far. No, I'm not gonna give you that much credit, Chance. However, going to the series, I think you gave the Heat a higher chance of competition than I did. I expected the Nuggets to steamroll these two games, and dude, that just kind of hasn't been the case when you look at game two. But we'll come back to that. We'll chop on that, Chance. But before we move to that, man, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the league that I think we would be remiss if we don't cover any of that stuff, even though we've got the NBA Finals going on right now.
I feel like the NBA is the one league where like in the NFL, like during Super Bowl week, do you hear of anything outside of like the two teams? Like it's just strictly like these two teams, media for 2 weeks. Other NBA and NFL are like the two main sports I follow, but I feel like NBA is the only sport where like there's literally like the top two teams in the finals going on, and there's like 17 side stories that are still happening at the same time. Is it like
you're right, dude? Like, because you think about it, like Super Bowl week, they do the whole big press stuff with media, and like everybody's there and everybody's covering just that game, right? Then like, and honestly, Chance, like the average football fan doesn't really keep up with the offseason, but there's a lot of casual basketball fans that keep up with NBA off seasons and what players are going where, and even like coaches and all this stuff now, where the game is just truly a year-round game. And I think a lot of that's coupled to just how much summer play is really important in the NBA too, because ball never stops. And football, it's only here, right, in the States.
Right.
But we're getting ready for Euro League and Eurobasket. We're ready for you saw the some of the USA team rosters getting announced and all of that jazz. It's just a lot of moving pieces and a lot of things going on.
That's what I love about the NBA. I feel like, because even with the finals, the draft is like a week or two after the finals ends, and then you go straight into summer league, straight into free agency. Like it's just nonstop, which is good for us because we always have content to talk about. But yeah, that's what I love about the NBA. It's always a story.
Great stuff, man. And look, that's why we started a podcast. Look, two friends that just love talking hoops, and we're like, hey, let's just get it on wax. But another reason why we started a podcast, Chance, was because we honestly are two people who hate some of these crazy takes that that people want to just throw out everywhere, which is going to lead me into my first point, Chance. I don't know how you feel about all of this Ja Morant stuff going on, but man, let me tell you something. First off, it's well documented how I feel about Ja and his extracurricular activities. My issue right now is I have moved past the Ja Morant thing because at the end of the day, whatever the suspension is going to come from him is going to come. We saw the stuff with Adam Silver came out and said they've gotten everything that they need, and a decision is in the mail. It's just they don't want to do that right now with one of the NBA's biggest stars in the middle of an NBA Finals. I'm
going to stop you right there. Looking back, was that the right call? Would it have been over quicker if they just said, hey, this is the suspension? Or did they turn it into a bigger story?
He should have just said no comment when he got asked that question. He'd been better off just saying.
You think that would have been better?
Yeah, he was just better off said no comment, or he would have been better off saying everything's still under investigation. That's all I can say at this time. He don't have to
Yeah.
say it's wrapped up. We've got a decision, because now you make it seem a lot bigger than what it probably is, and you're freaking out people. You hear, you've heard some people saying it's going to be 40 games. Yeah, some people saying it's going to be 20. Yeah, people. JJ Redick on TV suggesting that it was seven. That it should be 17. Yeah, it's a whole bunch of people throwing out numbers, but at the end of the day, none of the numbers is real yet. Like, we don't
Yeah.
know.
So that's my thing is he goes on and he's like, we pretty much have everything we need, but we're not going to take away from this series. And again, I completely agree with that. You don't want to distract. These are two great teams having, what looks to be a great series. But looking back on it, I feel like this has been talked about every single day since then. You've got,
Man,
Stephen A, which we'll cover. We've got all these other guys giving their thoughts on it. Whereas if you would have just said at the time, like, let's say it's 20 games, and he's just like, yeah, before the series, they're like, hey, yep, Ja's out for 20 games. You send the PR out the Friday before Memorial Day, let it get hidden in the news or whatever, and then that's it. People talk about the suspension. At this point, would it even be a discussion, or would it be kind of like, oh, that's the suspension, we'll deal with it? I feel like now it's something that, like, even now, like, we're not going to be done. This is going to be something that people continue to talk about for the next couple weeks until it's finally out. And then once he sends it out, that's going to, like, there's always NBA stuff going on. Like we mentioned, we've got the draft coming up, free agency. It's going to distract from something. So I honestly feel like they should have just released it in between the series or right before Memorial Day and just be done with it, because now it's turned into another story. And now it's all over the media. We've got hot takes flying left and right, and it's gotten a little wild.
man, Chance, look, I agree with you. Like, he didn't have to do what he did, okay? But he did what he did, and my issue has moved on from the league, and I have moved on to more of a focus on this doggone media coverage surrounding not just Ja Morant, but with just everything, period. Like, Chance, why do I get on my phone and I see uh, 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 excerpts from Stephen A. Smith saying things like, well, this is a lot bigger than just like basketball, or whatever he said about like, people are concerned about
I can
Ja.
read the quote. I've got it pulled up. So he said, a
Oh
lot of
my
players I
God.
know are from the streets, period. And I can tell you that people within the NBA community are not concerned about Ja Morant playing basketball. They're concerned about whether or not he's going to be alive in 5 years.
There are some things that you just don't say. Okay? Chance, there are some things, like, even if Stephen A knows some stuff that are legitimate concerns, but some things you just do not say on public television.
Mm-hmm.
Reason why? Because it leads to targets on people.
Yep.
And whether or not, yes, Ja has put him in positions that are extremely dangerous for someone of his magnitude. In several instances, like I would never recommend somebody of his magnitude in the club with a gun. I just would never recommend that. You've
Yep.
seen time and time again that does not work out well. You can look at a whole bunch of examples. Probably the largest example being Plaxico Burress, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a lot of things, like, from a gun safety standpoint, but then also just putting yourself in a position to be seen in a light that you necessarily don't want to be seen in.
Mm-hmm.
However, for media, I feel like media has to do better, Chance. Like, as these people who are covering the game, you have to take some type of level of responsibility on the things that you say on your platforms. Like, even on this platform, like, it's a lot of things, Chance, that you and I could say, but we decide to just, let's keep it to where it needs to be and what it actually needs to be about. But the way this content circus has gone on, it has gone on to the point, Chance, where it is just sometimes just insufferable.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, and I think that's the media and the day that we live in. I mean, Stephen A. now, and the thing is, it's all about saying things to feel like you're in the know, or to say things that are going to get clicks. Another example of this was, do you remember when Mark Spears was on? I think it was the Horse podcast back in March during the Ja
Yep.
Saga Part 1, and
Mm-hmm.
he said, I had the quote pulled up where he said, there's a lot going on in regard to John Morant. My prayers go out to him. There's some things I'm hearing that I'd rather not say on this podcast, but I hope he's taking care of himself. And so I remember that being another thing where it's like, okay, if you're really hearing all these things that you're really worried about, then that's probably something you shouldn't be saying in public, as you mentioned in the first place. Or B, like, what are you hearing in the first place? Or are you just saying things like you had a discussion with your aunt over breakfast and, I'm hearing things now. Like, I just feel like people that say that, like, I could say this right now. I could be like, oh, I'm in Memphis, Zach. We were just on Beale Street the other day, and I heard some things that, like, if this is the case, like, I hope Ja's, protecting himself, because from what I'm hearing, like, this is crazy. Like, it'd be really easy to post that, clip it up for 15 seconds, and go viral. But that's all these people on ESPN are trying to do. You see this in sports media. You see this in national media across both sides as well. It's just all about getting clicks, and that's a real issue. And I don't see it getting better because of that.
Man, and then even like I think back, not even just in this Ja stuff. Remember when all that stuff was going down with Ime Udoka, and everybody was so quick to just say, "Oh man, this situation is the worst." Like Matt Barnes went out there and was talking all that stuff, and then now he's like, "Oh man, maybe I shouldn't have said all that." It's become a point where I think people need, when they get on these platforms, they need to watch what they say. And then even another thing that frustrated me when Kendrick Perkins, which I think Kendrick Perkins is hilarious most of the time, he goes on there and starts going on this long thing about why he thinks John Morant should be traded so he can get out of Memphis. Now, if you listen to his whole statement, Chance, I understood what he was trying to say. I got it. I get it. It's just like in certain cities, there are all kinds of distractions for players. Like if they put if a NBA franchise moves to Vegas, it's all kinds of distractions in Vegas. For like if a player had dealt with substance abuse issues and all kinds of stuff, he probably shouldn't be in Vegas, right? Just because of the temptation, right? I know Perkins has said this before about Zion living in New Orleans, and he's clearly had issues struggling with his weight. New Orleans isn't a great city to be in.
It's just so crazy to think about. Like, oh, their food's too good, you got to get them out of there. Like that's the media takes that we get, is we're telling somebody he's got to leave New Orleans because that crawfish is just too good. Zion can't handle that. We got to don't send them to Memphis. They got barbecue over there. You got to send them somewhere else. Where, like, what's the worst food city that you can think of? And even that point with Ja, like Memphis is like Minnesota. One of the smallest. Yeah, like send them to Minnesota because the crawfish in New Orleans is just too good. Yeah. And like with the Memphis thing, like Memphis is one of the smallest markets. Like I get, the gun violence thing, and like there are some, reasonable points. But at the end of the day, if you're getting in trouble in Memphis, you're going to get in trouble in Atlanta or Vegas, as you mentioned, or New York, or any of these other bigger markets. Like it's going to
and that is my point. That's why certain things you just don't need to say, like because unless you have the time to sit there and explain that whole statement, like it's certain things, just some stuff you just say at the house and some stuff you just let it ride.
Yep. And when they say these things, it's going to get clipped up, and that's a problem too. And that's something that even, like you said, you and I have to keep in mind, is like anytime you're speaking in a public space, you have to know that some of it is going to get clipped up. And so I could go on a 5-minute rant that makes sense for 4.5 minutes of it. But if in those 30 seconds, I'm a little off base, those 30 seconds are going to be the rounds that go viral. And so you have to keep that in mind. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know if they even care. I think they almost want to say things that are clippable because those get the most views. Sure. And that's kind of the deeper issue of the whole thing.
Man, yeah, it sucks. And, hopefully we get better at that. And then hopefully we get this doggone John Morant suspension number, so then everybody can actually get accurate takes off. Okay.
Yeah. So what do you expect at this point? Because like you mentioned, like I saw one person reported that they expected like NBA executives, which honestly, like I could tweet this tomorrow and be like, NBA executives are expecting Ja to be banned from the league, and it'd probably get traction. So like you have to really like identify the sources, but I've seen some that say they expect it to be over half a season. Woj, I think the other day, said that the magic number is 17. He expects it to be around 17 because that disqualifies you from the awards that we talked about before. So we've had some time to reflect. I kind of gave like a initial range when I did the blog post a couple weeks ago, and I said somewhere between 20 and 40 games. That's still what I'm expecting. I will say I've been kind of talked into the lower end the more I've kind of thought about it. I think around 20
Mm-hmm.
is probably
Yep.
reasonable and fair. So that's kind of where I sit. Are you kind of in that same ballpark?
Yeah, I'm thinking 2025 is fair. Now, do I know like that is just with the information that
Right.
I have that's presented to me. Let's not forget the NBA has full-time FBI agents on staff.
Yeah.
Uh, Sometimes in these cases, uh, when they start going down the rabbit hole, ain't no telling what they might find.
Oh,
So
they might have found so many John Morant burner Instagrams where he's been flashing guns on live every weekend for the past 2 months. Like you never know what they could dig into. So
right,
with
and
the knowledge that we know, yeah.
with the knowledge we know, 2025 games. But like I said, it's just hard to speak on until we know all the facts, right? I think
Hmm.
2025 games is a fair suspension for him, and honestly, he should be really grateful that that's it because if that is what it is, because if it were David Stern, he would have got that the first time.
Yep.
So but this is different. This is a different situation with Adam Silver. And does Adam Silver use this as an example of like, hey man, you went back on your word uh from our last time meeting. And
Right.
this is how we're gonna handle this situation now. I don't know. It's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts, but until we got the information, man, it's just hard to speculate.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. I can't wait to sit back next week and talk about the latest coverage of it and what all crazy things have been said and continue to speculate because we won't know for a couple more weeks. So let's just make it a story every week, I guess, at this point. But
Man, in other media news, Chance, I don't know if you happen to see on your phone today of Clutch Sports and LeBron James taking advantage of the media, uh, taking advantage of the media cycle again.
LeBron playing the media, this is brand new. This has never
Oh
happened before.
man!
Haven't
So
seen
Sean,
this since his post game press conference of the last game. Like he went like a full week.
oh, he's a professional at this, brother.
Oh yeah.
So anyways, Shams Charania tweeted today that Kyrie Irving has touched bases with LeBron James in an attempt to get the Dallas Mavericks to trade for LeBron James. Chance, what were your initial thoughts when you first saw that tweet?
Nothing surprising. I feel like, the LeBron Kyrie thing has kind of been a thing for the past, few years now, ever since, they kind of had the falling out with the Cavs team. They
Mm-hmm.
went their separate ways. They both kind of realized, hey, maybe things weren't so bad off, when we were together. Maybe we should kind of look into this. And I feel like this is just something that at this point we're going to hear every summer. LeBron and Kyrie, we saw it last year with when their story about Summer League, where they're like hanging out together at Summer League. And, LeBron wasn't hanging out with Westbrook. He, was sitting by Kyrie. Like there's always these stories. At the end of the day, like, I feel like this is just kind of like off-season speculation. I haven't looked into the full, like, I know the Mavs have a lot of cap flexibility depending on the Kyrie thing, but I feel like it'd be really hard to build a team, especially with the new CBA, unless LeBron wants to take a massive pay cut. So I think that's the
Yeah,
whole situation, but
it's
I don't buy it too much at this point.
it's damn near impossible.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, unless Kyrie and LeBron are taking massive cuts, and then even if they do take cuts, then it's going to be impossible to fill out the rest of that roster.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I know they're not going to come to Dallas and play on minimums or play on
Right.
$5 million a year. And if I'm either one of them, they shouldn't. I mean, you know what I mean?
No,
Like
definitely
they
not.
got not that's not what their talent is worth, right? So I don't see that it's possible for that matchup to happen unless all forces move from that standpoint. I really think when I first saw this tweet, Chance, I was like, oh God, this is all this is LeBron and Kyrie trying to push the Lakers front office.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
I think so
truly
too.
what it is because the Lakers front office has said, "Look, we're re-signing all of our guys," and in that event, they could not go out and get Kyrie. The Lakers would have to offload pretty much most of their roster that got them to the Western Conference Finals if they were to
Mhm.
go out and make a move for Kyrie. And so then they would be in a situation where they would have to be back in just in a 3-man uh, in a big three situation again, where you got Kyrie, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis.
A big three
Does
with completely unreliable as far as like guys that are going to show up and play 82 games. Like, how many total games do you get out of those three? So,
you
yeah, I
don't
think
you don't know. You got LeBron, who is almost 40 years old. Well, he'll be what, 38, 39 at that time.
39 going into next season. I think.
Then you got AD, who is one of the most injury prone players in the league. Kyrie has had his own share of injuries, and
Mhm.
you know he, you know,
And he's Kyrie.
and he's Kyrie. You know what I mean?
I
And
don't really
so,
think you have to add much more. I think that
yeah,
kind of explains it.
the wind might blow wrong, and he might decide not to play the next day. You know, so
He's going to protest for a month.
that would make no sense for the Lakers, in my opinion, when they could look at keeping Austin Reeves and build around him and Vanderbilt, and then even bringing back D'Lo on a lesser deal, like and re-signing Rui Hachimura, and then and building for what life will look like post LeBron. Because the
Mhm.
reality of the situation is, Chance, LeBron's only got 1 or 2 more years of probably this level ish of basketball, and then at some point he's going to take a sharp decline at this age, just because I know he has defied all odds, and I am a King James believer, but Father Time has proven to be undefeated, and so and so at some point, when does it hit? We don't know. And that's what
Mhm.
makes it even crazier for if the Dallas Mavericks were going to make this trade. Like I was hearing some like Lakers people saying like Dallas doesn't have anything that they would want and all this stuff, which I get that, but honestly, some of the trade packages I saw that the Mavs would have to give up to go get LeBron was I was like, man, this would actually put the Lakers in a better position for the now and post LeBron era, because they were talking about trading LeBron for Tim Hardaway Jr., Maxi Kleber, uh, 2 first-round picks, including the number 10 pick this year, Josh Green, and Jaden Hardy. And I'm like, man, that's a lot of young talent coming to a team where you're able to go draft a number 10, and you're able to get Jaden Hardy, which has played like a stud. Josh Green has played like a solid role player. I'm like, man, like this would be almost the opposite of what they did for Anthony Davis, where they
Mhm.
traded up all their young assets for a superstar. I think that would be a good situation for them, because then they could easily take some of those young guys, and if they either develop them or they package them up and trade them for another big piece in the future.
I'll tell you,
So
man, like it's a decent package, but I think I'd have to have a gun to my head to make a move like that and trade LeBron out. I mean, at the end of the day, like it's LeBron
yeah,
James, and yeah, you want to build for your future, but when you play for the Lakers, you've got LeBron and AD. Like it's really hard to justify any type of move moving
oh,
out.
you are 100% right. Like, it's, to me, the deal doesn't make sense either way. The
Right,
deal does
right.
not make sense either way, because right now you've built this team to compete, because when LeBron leaves, there's no telling what your window of opportunity looks like. So
Hmm.
while you've got this window, you need to maximize that window if you are the Lakers.
Hmm.
Um, but now, also on the Maverick side of things, it doesn't make sense of mortgaging your whole future away for a 40-year-old basketball player. I don't care
Right,
who he is. It just
right.
makes zero sense to do that, because then you'll be in a situation with this new CBA that's tight as ever, and you're not going to be able to sign anybody but minimum guys. You're not going to be able to sign anybody in the buyout market. You won't be able to. You'll be limited on what type of trades you could make. You won't have any draft picks. To me, I wouldn't be surprised if a Mark Cuban team definitely looks up this, but it is honestly, it would be one of the dumbest things for the Dallas Mavericks to do.
Yeah,
It
I
would
think
it would it
everything
would reek
LeBron
of
has done.
desperation.
Right, right. I think everything LeBron has done since the moment that final buzzer sounded in game 4 has just been playing the media to try to get leverage for the Lakers to, as you mentioned, like make the moves he wants. I think his whole waiting till the last question and floating retirement out there, which is to play to make the Lakers do what he wants. I think this whole situation is the same thing. And I don't know what he wants. I think when you look back, I think LeBron is, by most people's accounts, a top 2 player of all time. Depending on who you talk to, I think there's a very reasonable chance, he is the best player of all time, but he's not the best GM of all time. And he's made a lot of
Oh,
questionable moves, and he's been put in a position to make a lot of moves from the front office standpoint. And a lot of those have not played out. And so if I'm the Lakers, I'm like, look, LeBron, like, do your thing, have your off season, like trust us. Like I turned this hot pile of garbage that we had into a Western Conference Finals team. Like just trust me to make the right moves, and you don't have to go into your media and start up a new, hooray every single time you feel like you want to put some pressure on us. Like let them do their thing. I think Pelinka's shown at this point, like he made a few mistakes. How much of that was him versus pressure from beneath, we'll see. But I would trust Pelinka to make some moves this offseason and get them right back where they were. I don't think you have to keep playing this media game, but that's LeBron. As much as we love him, that's what he's going to do. And I'm sure it's not the
man.
last of it.
Man, he's gonna do it. But if you look at his history, Chance, as a GM, it has not been great. Every team he has been a part of and made these decisions, they have all gone to shit.
Yep.
That's that. Anyways, we can move on, but definitely want to chop it up about that.
Yep.
In other news, Chance, is a dynasty finally fallen? The I am not sure. When you look over at San Francisco, the Golden State Warriors, this might be the first time in over a decade where you have really sat back and looked and said, you know what? The time might be the end. As you see, Bob Myers has stepped down as the general manager of the was he GM or was he president of basketball operations?
I think he kind of acted as both. He was essentially
Yeah,
making moves. So
yeah. He was the head honcho, whatever his exact title was. He stepped down from running the Warriors organization. Chance, what do you think this means for the Warriors moving forward?
Um, I think it was kind of expected. I mean, I've read a lot of quotes from Bob Myers where it sounds like this wasn't necessarily like a dispute with the organization. I think, he worked
Mm-hmm.
really hard and he did a great job of building up a dynasty. He had some help. I think Draymond helped a lot with the recruiting of KD and all these different things. Like he definitely
Mm-hmm.
had, some help along the way, but I see this more as like Bob Myers wanting to step down. I've read a lot where he wants to spend more time with his family, stuff like that. At the end of the day, like he built up the team. So now it's a point where do they want to try to get 1 or 2 more years, out of this core that they have? And I don't think the dynasty's over yet. I think with the way Steph played in the playoffs, they're still capable of making a deep run. I think Clay obviously has taken a significant decline since the injury. He hasn't quite gotten back to form. Jordan Poole, I would be shocked if he's on the Warriors next season, the way things have gone with him. I think that is somebody that you definitely look to move. But at the end of the day, like as long as you have Steph and he's healthy, I still think they have a shot to make some moves around him, regardless if Bob Myers is there or not. I think Myers did the hard part. He built up the team, but I see them being a team that's going to continue to fight. They're not going to just start a rebuild and, with Steph still playing the way he is.
Yeah, and I think Kerr has been very clear that he wants to keep the team together. And then you got Joe Lake up there. I, to me, I don't see any reason why this team doesn't go for it for at least like another 2 years. So like maybe they bring Draymond back on a short term deal. I don't know what Draymond's looking for, but maybe they bring him back on a 2 year deal. Maybe they bring Clay back on a similar deal and run these contracts out. But they still got a little runway left, man. I just don't
Yeah.
see them. You look at the West. I mean, it's kind of wide open
Mm-hmm.
as far as teams out there. I don't see why they would take the gamble and blow it up. But you look at Jordan Poole, chance with the way this new CBA is, Jordan Poole is getting moved.
Yeah.
Whether
Gotta be.
they just give them away. I think at some point, I think that salary is just going to have to be. It's going to be a big major roadblock for them if they don't do something with it.
Yeah. I think, I thought he played well into his contract, after not this past postseason, but the postseason before. I thought he was unbelievable. They even had Steph coming off the bench when he came back from his injury because Jordan Poole was playing so well. And he's always been a liability on defense. But this past year, I feel like he took even a step down from where he was, which was a pretty low bar to begin with. And when he's not making his shots and he's not creating plays for others, like I just feel like whenever he has the ball, you just never know what's going to happen, and not in a good way. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely a contract that'll be moved. But I do expect them to do everything they can to still contend. As long as you've got Steve Kerr calling the shots, as long as you've got Steph, then they'll have a chance. Even if Draymond ends up going another route, I still think they can build a team around Steph. So not counting them out just yet, but it'll be a really interesting development to see, what direction they take this offseason.
Chance, we got some more coaching updates out there. So as far as assistants go, today actually, David Fizdale is actually changing jobs, and he is going to the Phoenix Suns as an assistant coach under Frank Vogel, who Frank Vogel just got hired as the head coach out there in Phoenix. Chance, when you heard about what the Suns are doing, at first glance, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I like the moves they've made. I think Frank Vogel took a lot of heat with the way the Lakers situation played out that I didn't think was deserved. I think that was more of the lead GM that caused a couple issues with the roster, as we talked about before. I think Vogel's a good coach. I like David Fizdale. I think, his time in Memphis ended abruptly with the whole Marc Gasol situation, but I think he'd be a positive asset for them. So biggest thing is their relationship. Fizdale struggled to build a relationship with the Grizzlies center with Marc Gasol. DeAndre Ayton showed some issues with Monty Williams, to put it lightly, in the past. So are Vogel and Fizdale guys that the locker room will buy into, because this is a team that's also in complete win now. When you go out and trade your whole entire future for Kevin Durant, you're expecting to win a title, if not this year, in the next 2 to 3 years. So it'll be a lot of pressure on these guys. But overall, I think they've made good moves so far. I think there's a lot of great coaches on the market. And we'll see how it pays off.
Yeah, I actually like the hire for them. I mean, because in theory, if Vogel is able to get in there, and Vogel is a defensive minded coach, that's what he's known for. If he's able to get in there and install a defense in which he can get an engaged DeAndre Ayton, and he can sell him that vision of, hey man, I want to use you the same way I won a championship with Anthony Davis. If he can sell that vision to DeAndre Ayton and get him on board, man, I really think that that was probably a good hire for the Phoenix Suns. But that all remains to be seen, because with DeAndre Ayton, uh, his effort has always been a thing that, I mean, even since college, that people have always questioned. So can he get him buy-in? If not, he'll probably be looking for a job pretty soon if he can't get him
Yeah.
buy-in. But who knows? There's been reports out there that the Suns are looking to move Aiden and keep Chris Paul. So I don't know. We'll see. But overall, I like the hire.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Chance. Uh, uh, then Detroit also made some moves, some major moves. They hired Steven Silas as an assistant onto Monty Williams' staff.
With a fat contract for Monty Williams too. So he got 6 years, $78 million. So was that a little over
God,
$13 million a year? He's the new
dude,
highest paid coach. What did you think about the numbers on that one?
man, he's getting paid like an NBA, like a legit rotation NBA
That's like the
player.
mid-level exception is like 12.
Like, look, dude is getting paid more than a lot of dudes. But you know what? Overall, Chance, I am not mad at this deal for Detroit. The reason why
Mm-hmm.
I'm not mad at this deal for Detroit is because they believe in their young core, right? So meaning they want to bring a coach in that they feel is going to be able to teach them healthy habits, and is also a good enough coach that they feel like they can keep there long term. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Monty Williams has said that he, it was reports out there that if it weren't the right situation, meaning like a championship level team, Monty was probably just going to sit the year out, and take some rest, which a lot of coaches do all the time,
Mm-hmm.
so that way they can kind of like recoup and look at the game different and come back as a better coach. A lot of times, coaches do that. It's not very uncommon to do that. However, this situation, I think it. I mean, Monty. I mean, he couldn't say no to that offer.
$78 million is the right situation,
Yeah,
regardless.
yeah, he
Yeah.
couldn't. I would venture to say that that's more than he's ever got paid for playing basketball. So,
Yeah.
for him, man, he couldn't say no. And then you look at it from a Detroit standpoint, man, I think it's huge. And then even going in and adding Steven Silas as the lead assistant, I really like the hires because you got two guys who have been known to teach and develop young guys, even though Steven Silas wasn't able to get anywhere close to that in Houston. But historically,
That was a tough job.
yeah,
I
that
don't
was
think
yeah,
many
it was,
people would have had success there.
you're right. It was a lot of stuff going on up there. But but man, I think Detroit's now in a situation where hey, we've got our coach for now and we've got our coach for the future. I mean, I like the hire. It's an extremely high number, but hey, if the owner's willing to pay it, who cares? There's no cap.
Yep. Yeah, there's no cap for coaches. So yeah, these owners, they're billionaires. So if they can go out and spend $13 million a year, and if it doesn't work out, they'll fire him halfway through. Every coach gets fired unless your name is Spo or Popovich. So if it doesn't work out halfway through, buy him out, find somebody else, whoever the next hot name is. And that's kind of the theme for the coaches these days.
Mm-hmm. And then another thing, Chance, Terry Stotts got a job, assistant coach. He's joining Adrian Griffin's staff in Milwaukee. You know, I said this on the pod last week. I said, Chance, I like the Adrian Griffin hire, but my only thing is they need to hire an experienced coach who's offensive minded.
Mm-hmm.
And Terry Stotts is the perfect guy for that. Terry Stotts is long and well respected as a great offensive mind. Did a lot of great work from offensive standpoint in his years over there at Portland with Damian Lillard, LaMarcus
Mm-hmm.
Aldridge, and with those guys, and then even on his work under Rick Carlisle in Dallas and winning a championship and all that stuff. Terry Stotts is a great option, and he's the exact option I said that they needed. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to see him land on his feet.
Yeah. Great call there.
Well, Chance, so we've had all those coaching moves, and it looks like the game two of the NBA Finals came down to a lot of coaching decisions. Um,
Yep.
and Miami ended up proving the world wrong
As they
and
continue to do.
smacking Denver in the mouth at home. Chance, what were some of your takeaways of the game the other night?
I mean, first off, at this point, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, but eventually we just have to realize this Miami Heat, I don't know what it is about them because I think they're the superior team talent or the inferior team. I think I just mixed those up. They are not as talented as Denver Nuggets. I don't know which one I said. They're not as talented. This is the fourth series in a row where they're not the more talented team, and they just continue to just bounce back and find a way. I mean, what they did to Milwaukee, that was a shock in itself. Once they got to the Knicks series, okay, this one, it's pretty even. I could see Miami taking this one. And then with Boston, I was like, okay, Boston, I wasn't too impressed with them getting up to the series. I felt like there was a chance. I think me and you both called Miami ended up winning that series because we just didn't trust the mental latitude of Boston. But in this series with Denver, Denver's on a completely different pedestal from those other teams. So I really thought this would be the series. I still had Miami getting a couple. I think I said Denver in 6. You had Denver in 5. Either of those could still be true. But Miami was just not going away. And there were a couple of things that I noticed. The three-pointing success that they've had. They were one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the year throughout the season during the regular season, but they've struck fire in the playoffs. I think they were 47% on just wide open threes in the past game. League average is around 37%. So I'll start with that. Do you think that is sustainable? Can they get 3 more games of red hot shooting like this? Because they have shooters on the team. So it's kind of funny that they were such a horrible shooting team. Part of that is Duncan Robinson was out of the rotation for a while. But do you think they can get 3 more games out of that type of shooting?
Man, Chance, going into this, I was really down on the Heat, but I really think that they can. Because if you look at the 3-point shots that they were taking, it wasn't like they weren't taking shots that were in the rhythm of the offense.
Yep.
If you look at Miami between Strus, Vincent, Robinson, and then if I mean, I know Hero's saying that he's probably not coming back, but if there is a chance that Hero does come back later on for games 5, 6, or 7, right? Like like they've got shooters all over the board
Mm-hmm.
out there in Miami. And that's kind of how they're playing. They play great team basketball, and they just pass the ball around to find the open shot. So is it sustainable? Yeah. Is hitting open shots sustainable? Yeah, it's sustainable.
That's
So
my thing too. I agree. I think a lot of the looks are open. It's not like they're taking tough contested shots at the end of the shot clock. I think they're running great actions. It's always interesting when you see NBA teams run the same set 2 or 3 times in a row, and you saw that where they had Bam had the ball at the elbow, and they were running Duncan Robinson off the curl screen from Vincent. And you see it the first time, both guys stay on Robinson because he's such a huge threat. Vincent pops out, gets a wide open three from the corner. Then you come back and they run the exact same action. This time Robinson curls around the screen, gets a wide open layup. And it's like they're running good action. And the Nuggets have a lot of miscommunication on defense. And this is something that came up. We haven't seen many teams that were this bad on defense in the regular season. Not that Denver was bad, but they weren't a top 10 level defense during the regular
right.
season. And some of that is showing now with some of these mistakes. Even Malone called out some of the guys where he said after the game that he thought some guys were getting in their head because their shots weren't falling and it was causing them to, have a reduced effort on defense. And you saw some of that. I think Michael Porter Jr. was definitely one of the names he was referring to there. Porter had a absolutely horrendous game on both ends, I thought, even though he had been playing well on defense leading up to that one. But I think it is sustainable. I think they're getting great looks and they're running great offense. So I think it absolutely could happen.
Well, Chance, and even if you remember, like all year long, we had raved about Denver's offense all year long, but we had said this team's Achilles heel is their defense. And honestly, I think Miami has exposed that. Then even honestly, in that first game, it just a lot of it looked like Miami's legs were tired. They weren't in their shots. But, I mean, Miami missed a lot of open shots in game one. Denver honestly did get a little lucky winning game one at home, because if that Miami team probably hadn't came off of a 7-game series and straight from that series all the way into the next series, I mean, that game could be a whole different outcome, and we could be sitting here saying that Miami's up 2 games on Denver.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think Denver really got lucky on that whole situation. But, Chance, another thing is I really do like what I have seen out of the adjustments that Spo did make. I know the big conversation has been, forcing Joker to be more of a scorer than a facilitator, which honestly, it makes perfect sense, because the problem is whenever you got Joker being at the top of the attack, setting everybody up, then you allow all of these shooters to get off. Right. And so you're allowing Michael Porter Jr. to get those easy buckets that he was getting in game one. You allow Jamal Murray to just run off of actions off of Joker all game. And then running like all kinds of like pin downs and all these different things just to get open to get shots. But what they did by putting more of an emphasis on Murray and shadowing him, dude, I think that was actually pretty genius, just because because it really put that team in a position for others to create for themselves versus getting easy catch and shoot opportunities off of Joker.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of layers to the adjustments that he made, and it starts with Kevin Love being inserted to the starting lineup. And when you do that, it does a couple things on defense. For one, you've got Love is not the best defender, although he's shown some times in the past where he can, play good defense when the effort is there. But at this point in his career, he's not a lockdown defender by any means, but he's got the size to where he can match up with Aaron Gordon, who was just completely dominating in the first half of the last game. So adding Kevin Love to that lineup allowed Jimmy Butler to switch on to Murray, to your point. And then you've got one of the best perimeter lockdown defenders in the league guarding Jamal Murray. He's able to disrupt a lot of things. They mixed in that zone, which at this point, it's not even a 2-3 zone. It was more of a 1-3-1 look, which was really interesting because I haven't seen anything like that. I don't even know if I've ever seen a zone like that in the NBA before, but they were running a 1-3-1 and just collapsing completely on Joker in the middle. And to your point, making Joker score. The Nuggets are 0-3 in the playoffs when Jokic scores 40 plus. They're 13-1 when he scores fewer than 40. So they clearly were like, you know what? If you get it, like, we're going to let you go to work. We're going to collapse on you, make you take tough shots, but we're not going to leave shooters open, because that's how he wants to play. He's kind of like Steve Nash. Like Steve Nash didn't want to take 28 shots in a game. He
Mm-hmm.
wanted to facilitate. Jokic is the same way. Like he doesn't want to take 28 shots, and they force him to be a scorer. And at that point, other guys get out of rhythm. And luckily, the Nuggets are just so talented. They were able to almost come back at the very end just with Murray hitting a couple crazy shots. But I think all of those adjustments, starting with Kevin Love, the zone defense, and just wrinkling that in, mixing it up, as soon as they get comfortable, they throw a different look at him. Spo is just completely in another level. And I think Malone is a great coach, but it's always about the team that loses a game. That's the team that has to make the adjustments. You saw that after
Right.
game one. The Nuggets win. The Heat make a couple adjustments. They start, Kevin Love. So now what adjustments can Denver make going into game three? Because now the pressure's on them. They're going back to Miami. They're still favored to win the game and the series, but now it's Malone's turn to make adjustments. I don't see any from the starting lineup perspective, but do you see any notable adjustments that you see coming from them?
Man, I honestly don't know. I wish I had the foresight to tell you what I think they should do. But I think a lot of it just has to go from. I think I would like to see Malone kind of do some stuff to maybe get Murray going a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So then that way, once you got him on a heater, then maybe some of that stuff it won't bother him, right? Having like Jimmy Butler on him, like if you start running Jamal Murray off like maybe some double action screens and things like that, just to get him open and just to get some easy shots. I think that might go a long way. But other than that, man, I really don't know, man, because you got to think from my perspective, dude. I went in thinking this was going to be a clean sweep.
I think one thing that you have to do if you're back on the Nugget side is, okay, I would say, so they're starting Kevin Love now, right? So how do you take advantage of that? Obviously, you weren't able to, get Kevin Love in the post, but if you can find some ways to get Kevin Love out on the perimeter, maybe involve Gordon in the screen more as opposed to Joker. So maybe now you're doing some 1-4 screen and roll with Murray. You get Kevin Love matched on a Murray. That's a situation where you feel good about that matchup, right? Murray can dominate that, create some help. I think you might see a little more Gordon involved in the pick and roll just to get Kevin Love involved in the action when Duncan Robinson is in. Like, that's the thing. NBA can be very simple at times. Who is the worst defender on the court? Who is your best offensive player? And this is something LeBron has been doing for 20 years now. He's going to say, you know what? I'm the best one-on-one player on this court. I'm going to pick out who your worst defender is. I'm going to have their man come and screen me. I'm going to switch on to you, and then I'm going to bully you. And I expect that to happen more in the next game. I think they'll do more 1-4 screen and rolls, get Murray matched up with Love. Then you can break him down. And you could even see that with Jokic too, try to get, switches onto Jokic to take Bam off of him. I think Jokic is dominating, right? He's been amazing. But Bam has really held his own and made him really work for every point that he's getting. And Bam is playing great on the other end as well. You have to give him a lot of props because, and this is another discussion, I don't think Jimmy Butler looks himself. I don't know if that ankle injury is still bothering him a little bit, but he's not taking over these games the way you saw in the last few series. Have you noticed that?
Well, I heard some stuff saying that apparently his father passed away, or his father's sick. What
I did
other?
not. Yeah, I did not read about that at all. So that could be part of it.
I just saw that coming on this pod. So apparently he's dealing with some personal issues. So that might be a piece of it. Then he also might just be worn down, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's had a hell of a playoff run. They all started in the play-ins for them, and he is the main reason why they're here. So I think a lot of that could be a lot of that to do with it. Which, if you think about in the past, in past situations when the Heat have made these long runs, Jimmy Butler did run out of gas too, kind of in the past, man, just from exerting so much, right? Because like in a perfect world, Jimmy Butler is a great player. Don't get me wrong. Jimmy Butler, when he all said and done, he'll probably retire and he'll be in the Hall of Fame and be one of these great players. But if you look at it like a true championship team, is he traditionally the quality of your best player? He's probably more so like on a lot of these like dynasty level teams. He's probably the second best player, right? Like he's probably the Kobe to the Shaq when they were going. He's probably the Magic to the Kareem when Kareem was in his prime. Like, he's probably a second option at best, but to his credit, He's been option one, and he has dragged this team to an NBA Finals. But it's not all on him. A lot of that's just because of great coaching as well. So I think Spo deserves a hell of a lot of credit as well
Yeah,
for what
definitely.
has gotten them in this situation. But when it comes to
Yeah.
Jimmy, I mean, I don't know. But the thing is, if there's a team that's going to figure it out, it's going to be Eric Spoelstra and the damn Miami Heat.
Oh yeah, and it could even be that it could be he's just wearing out and he knows it's a long series, and going into Miami maybe he flips the script. I just noticed that he looks a little more passive. His mid-range shots
Mm-hmm.
aren't falling like they used to. Even like his touch around the rim feels like it's a little off. That makes me think that it could be an injury still bothering him. But even on these screen and rolls where Jokic is playing drop coverage and is giving him that 15-foot pull up, and he's just not really looking to take it. And I mean, he's still playing fine. Like he's still making plays for others. I feel like him and Jokic are very similar when they always make the right play. It seems like they always find the open man. So I don't think
Mm-hmm.
he's playing bad. He's just not really taking over. And he's doing it in spurts. In the fourth quarter of both games, he's had a couple moments where he's stepped up and made plays when they need it. He hit the big shot, at the end of the last game. But I feel like there's still that level that he's not getting to yet. And I'm curious if it's just wearing down. Maybe it is some off the court stuff that, is bothering him. But I think they're definitely going to need that Jimmy Butler. Like you can get by with hot shooting games and win a game or two, but if you're going to pull off this upset, you need Butler to be that guy that was the first three
You do.
series. And
You do.
I think it could still happen, but at the end of the day, they had to win last night. When you're shooting that well from three, you can't let that game slip away. I think if they would have lost last night, I say this, Miami's a team that can come back from anything, but that would have really put a damper in this series because when you shoot that hot on the road, you have to find a way to get that. And that was huge for them to pull that one off. They almost blew it going into the last play. I thought Murray got a pretty decent look. What were your thoughts? There's been some talk on if Malone should have called a timeout on the last play. You have any opinion on if that was the right call or not?
Man, no. I mean, because I don't think it was an issue because at the end of the day, he got a good
Mm-hmm.
look still. I
Yeah.
mean, like, and then and it wasn't like an instance where somebody that wasn't Joker or JaMychal Murray that was taking that shot. So I mean, I feel okay about it because a lot of times with these coaches, these new school coaches, they rather be hands off and just let things happen throughout the flow of the game. And a lot of times that's proven to be better for these teams versus calling a timeout and then allowing Eric Spoelstra to draw up some great legendary defensive set for the shot. So I'm not against it. I think it all ended up working out for him. But I mean, well, it
Yeah.
didn't work out, but it wasn't because of a coaching decision, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I think they still got a good shot. And it's one of those situations where it's the Monday morning quarterback. It's, if he would have called a timeout and they got a good look, it would have been a great
Right.
decision. If he would have called a timeout and they all of a sudden turn it over and then it's like, oh, why didn't you just let him play? I think it's just, it all comes down to the outcome. You wanted a Jamal Murray three, and that's what you got. It was a good look. It almost went in. I think Butler made a sneaky good play in transition. He picked up Jokic because he knew the 1-5
Mm-hmm.
screen was coming. So he
Yep.
picked up Jokic when he saw they weren't calling timeouts, and he got switched onto Murray, and he played great defense one-on-one on that last play. But I'm with you. I think the Heat have had great half-court defense, and clearly Malone wanted to not have to face the half-court defense because that's the thing, too. When you call a timeout, yes, you get to drop your play, but then you've got Spo on the other end drawing up whatever defense he wants, and you don't know, like, for all you know, you could drop the perfect play, and Spo comes out in a triangle and two or something crazy, and all of a sudden everything's thrown off. So I think they got a good shot, and it just didn't work out. But yeah, I won't criticize him too much. I think it was the right call either way.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'm,
it's 1-1 now. So how do we feel about the rest of the series?
Man, I don't know. Going into Miami, man, I mean, all the pressure is on the Denver Nuggets now going into Miami because now they're in a position where they have to win at least one game in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be tough to do going out there doing it because Miami is not going to back down. How do I feel about it? I'm a little nervous about Nuggets in 5. I would feel a lot better about a Nuggets in 6 situation,
Mm-hmm.
just due to the circumstances. However, I mean, I still feel confident in Denver winning this series. But it's definitely, I'm definitely starting to shake a little bit on my prediction.
Yeah, I think it looks more and more like it's going to be a long series. I still think Denver's the better team. I still think Denver should win. They're the favorites as they should be. But Yeah, I think it's going to be a long series. Miami's clearly proven that for whatever reason, they are going to just continue to keep up, continue to not go away, and continue to extend these series out. And so I would expect a split in Miami at this point, go back 2-2. And then from there, it's a best of 3 and anything can happen. But I wanted a long series. I didn't want this has been a great NBA season, a lot of entertainment. I didn't want that to end with a 4 or 5 game series at the end. So I hope they do continue to extend it and prove a lot of people wrong. I still think the gap between Denver and Miami is large enough that Denver should still win the series. But at the end of the day, like, we've been proven wrong by Miami so many times, and it could easily happen again. So I won't act like I know what's going to happen. Denver should win. I expect them to win, but we're in for some more great basketball.
Yeah, you never know, man. I'm excited. Well, anyways, look, Chance, I think that wraps up our pod today. To all of our listeners out there, make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms and catch us anywhere you get your podcast. Until next time, we'll holla at you. Peace!